Hi, and welcome everyone to Whole Soul School and Foundation's Fireside Chats for March 2021. I'm Marie Mohler, and I'm an author, intuitive life coach, and a host of this Fireside Chats podcast series. And I am here with Lacy Frazer, my co-host, who is a clinical psychologist by training and a practicing life coach and consciousness educator today. I want to welcome our listeners today. We have been in the process of refining, retuning, and affirming the vision and scope of our mission here at Whole Soul School and Foundation over the past several months, as many conscious creators will do. And I wanted to share that as of April 2021, our mission is to increase self-awareness, personal empowerment, conscious communication, and the experience of personal freedom in people worldwide through our good vibes broadcasting and consciousness teachings. Our positive messages, inspiring products, and empowering tools aim to awaken people's hearts and minds to the gifts of who they truly are, inspire them to engage the journey of personal transformation, and invite them to steadily strengthen and engage their spiritual core. A portion of funds raised provides goods and resources to men and women releasing from prison, their families, and others in need. And I just want to remind our audience, our loyal listeners, and for both you and I, Lacy, it's so important to say again that we hold a core belief that our conversations in these broadcasts and in these podcasts are the education. Sharing inspired thoughts with the intention of helping people in their quests for personal transformation and wholeness is the education and the enrichment that I do believe many seek in their lives today. So I want to welcome everyone, and I want to welcome you, Lacy. Thank you for joining me.
Of course. It's wonderful to be here.
I know, right? It's almost April. We're still in March 2021, but it's definitely spring, and there's that energy of creation and new life and new birth, and spring is springing here, at least in the northern hemisphere. And I have some exciting news I just want to share with you and our audience. We wanted to seed in this conversation today that April 2021 marks the third anniversary of Whole Soul School and Foundation, so it's kind of our birthday.
Wow.
We are right on the cusp of that anniversary.
It's hard to believe.
Right?
Yep.
And we have been visioning, manifesting, podcasting, broadcasting, and inspiring listeners in our audience for these last 3 years now, which has been really exciting and personally fulfilling. I can speak for myself, and I know you, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
And so I thought for this conversation today that we might weave some reflections about Whole Soul School and Foundation into these fireside chats today, from where we began, what we've created thus far, and where we are going, and also at the same time, talk about the process of visioning and launching or manifesting your visions, which is a deep part of the journey of personal transformation and this process of self-actualization and steady refinement and accessing more and more of our personal empowerment. And so I thought that's a way of illustrating this journey that many people go on as we begin to create our lives, as we are visioning our lives. We've touched on a lot of the aspects of the hero's journey and the journey of personal transformation, but given that we're coming up on the crest of our 3-year anniversary here at Whole Soul School and Foundation, I thought we'd start with a little bit of our story and weave in some insights about the visioning and manifesting process, because people are doing this in their lives. They're wanting to create new things in their life, right? If we don't like something we're experiencing, a lot of people are letting go of some of those experiences and in the process of creating something new.
Yeah, I think the creation and the maintaining and the growing of Whole Soul School and Foundation is a fantastic illustration of how to vision and manifest. I mean, I love using our own stories, as you know, to help illustrate what we want to talk about and teach about.
Right? Exactly. And so the journey of Whole Soul School and Foundation, once upon a time, right? 30 years ago, really back in the early 1990s, when we met and we first connected, there was this awareness we both had that we wanted to create a center together. Now, at the time, we didn't have a lot of the language that we've acquired in the past 30 years. But at the time, we just called it the center. And we thought it might be a wellness center or a holistic center, really truly before we really knew what that meant. But the seeds were planted way back then, right?
Yeah, I really think we knew something that we didn't know that we knew, if that makes sense.
I think a lot of people have that
Yeah.
experience sometimes. Maybe not always, but sometimes for a bigger purpose or a passion project or a place that people know that they've always wanted to go to, but they've never been to before, but they feel this deep attraction to travel there. I think those are nudges for us, and we need to trust those when they come through like that. There's a qualitative difference when we're being guided more by the soul, right, than our minds.
Oh, yeah.
And those are things that I think when we get tapped on the shoulder and we get those intuitive nudges to listen to that insight or that inspiration.
I love to refer to that as the future pull.
Right? It was sort of a future pull. And so I just wanted to review for a minute that over the years, so this is the early 1990s, remember, and we're in the year 2021.
Right.
So back in the day when we felt this call to create a center, that center in our visions, Lacy, took many different forms over the years, because when you're following these kinds of breadcrumbs, when you're listening and you're just getting these little tiny baby downloads, and we didn't even call them that then, we just felt this future pull, like you said. We thought it might be a private practice for counseling clients. We thought it might be a holistic center, maybe where a bunch of different providers with different skill sets came together. We thought at one point it might be a residential facility where people could come and receive these empowering teachings and what came to be life coaching through the two of us and tools for awakening in their own spiritual journey. And then we thought it might be about empowering people re-entering their lives from prison with these tools, insights, and keys to living a more authentic life, a more fulfilling life. And then in that magical year of 2018, right, we formed a nonprofit organization that we came to call Whole Soul School and Foundation. And I have a few quotes to share about that energy of creation. Vision with action can change the world. That's a quote from J.A. Baker. I love that one. It's true. You can have the vision, but without the action steps, right, you might not just create the change.
And if I could chime in there, I think one thing that's really important about the action steps, and when I teach around this, I often teach around baby steps. That, for so many people, they get very attached to the long-term outcome that they are seeking to make their way to. And they get so focused on the outcome that they forget to take those baby steps.
Right.
And so I think that when we talk about visioning, it's also really important to remember small baby steps at a time. And if we were to recount the last 20 years or the last 30 years, we would probably string thousands of baby steps together.
Oh, there's a lot.
That led us to our April 2018 creation of Whole Soul School and Foundation. Mm-hmm. So it's important to visioning it's about seeing and feeling and being guided by, and it's also about taking baby steps.
Yeah, well, small steps can create big change.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so that's the same thing. It's just like we're a nonprofit, and we know that when people donate $1, lots of $1, create support for passion projects and visions like this.
Right.
And so it's no step is too small. I think the key is to be taking a step.
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So, but I like that quote, vision with action can change the world, by J.A. Baker. And the second quote I wanted to share is from Napoleon Hill. And he says, cherish your visions and your dreams as they are the children of your soul, the blueprints of your ultimate achievements. Right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
They are a blueprint. If we can just begin to learn how to decode them, trust them, cherish them, trust those dream seeds that we have. When a vision is coming into your awareness, instead of brushing it aside or just letting it float on past, it's for you, right? It's for you. And these are blueprints that if we just take those next baby steps that you're talking about, it does begin to create big change in some aspect of our lives, whether it's a nonprofit like we created, or whether it's a trip that you've always wanted to take somewhere to some special place in the world that you feel called to do, or a relationship that you want to have. The possibilities are endless in terms of what you can create. But the key is listening, and then when you're guided to take action, you take that next right step. Right?
Right.
And so that's what we did. We cherished our dreams and we cherished our visions, just like Napoleon Hill said, trusting what we felt and knew could and would be true at one point. We listened for guidance. We followed breadcrumbs. We took one step after another, keeping our curiosity alive over the years. We would talk about the vision in some kind of rhythmic cycles. It would come back around for us, and it would come back around for us. And we would refine it and retune it and calibrate it when new insights would come. And we would just continue to water the seeds of the blueprint that Napoleon Hill references in that quote.
Yeah, and I think it's important too to mention here that refining and rewatering the seeds, I don't know that we always knew we were doing that.
Oh, exactly.
But just in the talking about the vision or aspects of the vision at different times in our life, I think
we didn't have the language,
right?
But we were taking those steps,
right? Exactly.
So, exactly, and you learn. Sometimes we acquire the language well after we've already done the creating, right? And so, I wanted to just revisit that it was in December 2017, many years after we were initially talking about the center, right?
Right.
This is many decades later.
Yeah.
In December of 2017, you retire from federal service as a clinical psychologist for the Federal Bureau of Prisons to begin to take more action steps with me. We knew we had this bigger vision, and somehow work, your day job and very important work that you were doing there, somehow kept getting in the way of manifesting this other vision. And then there was a choice point, right? There was a choice point to stay in your job for a few more years at that point in time, right?
Right.
Or to make the choice to leave that experience, feeling maybe like that was coming to a close for you, and step into this larger creation, right? That was a big turning point for you, especially.
It was a huge step, a much bigger turning point than my conscious mind knew at the time.
Yeah.
And I only really realized how big it was,
I think
many months afterwards.
You looking back on a lot of our creations, when you're in it, you don't always see it.
Right.
It's usually with 20/20 hindsight that you can say, oh yeah, there was that clue, and there was that messenger, and there was that thing came to me at just the right time.
Right.
But this is important because when people are visioning in their own lives and they are feeling this future pull of some kind to have an experience or to manifest something, we don't always have the language. We don't always see, and we can't line up the 5 or 10 steps as they're happening, that it's all happening. But often you can look back and say, oh, there was that connection. There was that moment where, this choice came into my life and I took the door on the right instead of the door on the left. And that made all the difference.
Right.
Right. We're all going through that in these times because there's so much change going on in our lives. Life in the way that we knew it isn't quite the same now. And certainly in 2021, this was true in 2020. And I think it's going to continue to be true because I think we are going through a time of change on the planet. So, nearly 3 decades later, here opens this choice point for you to either stay the path that you were on, or do you step into this vision that we've held for so long and give it more of your full attention? And we made that choice.
Yeah.
You did retire.
Yeah.
From federal service anyway, but not from life.
Right. Or working.
Or working. Right. Good point. So essentially to launch this vision that there had been many things in many forms that it had taken up until this point, all these concepts we had, but we're moving from the concept of this now. When you retired, it was retirement with the vision of taking more action steps of manifesting this.
Right.
And that is what we did. So we moved from kind of a concept board and maybe just a vision board to living it. Right? And that's what happens. You take these baby steps until you have enough of the baby steps that start to form a little bit of a pathway towards the vision. And then at some point you leap from the board into your life.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then, so you retire in late December 2017. And in January 2018, we basically set sail, right, to start the nonprofit.
Right.
And so in 2018, what do? We design logos.
Yep. We got ourselves some legal counsel to bring Whole Soul School and Foundation into legal form.
Right. Exactly. We get it. So we basically get incorporated, and we partner with a fiscal sponsor who provided even more support, more education, more resources for us in this process. Because again, these might sound like big steps to some people, but for us, the way it unfolded, this is a 30-year vision. So after visioning for 30 years and just saying yes to this vision, to step into the path, to live it, everything happened really quickly. So in just a matter of months, we had logos, and we had a web designer, and we had a logo designer, and we had a fiscal sponsor. And so that part happened really quickly, but let's remember, we call it 3 months quickly.
Right.
When it had taken 30 years to vision that, right?
And that's really important to highlight, because there's a lot of people who believe that, bringing a vision into form, we're not talking necessarily about goal setting here. And a lot of people confuse goal setting and visioning.
Right.
Right.
Do you want to distinguish that?
Well, I just think that we can set short-term and long-term goals, and we take steps to meet the goals, and we check them off when we get there, but this is, and there's sort of usually a time constraint or a deadline or something associated with goals.
That's more linear time, goal manifesting, goal achieving.
But, visioning kind of in the way I feel visioning, and I think how you and I have walked our own path, is we've sort of, sometimes by choice and sometimes not by choice, taken time out of the equation. We've allowed things to unfold in right timing. Some might say in divine timing. And we had to, somewhere in our 30-year journey, we had some pretty massive experiences in our life that taught us what that actually means. It taught us how to let go of expectations and let go of being attached to outcomes and let go of linear concepts like time. And we had to sort of trust our inner guidance system and trust the unfoldment towards the vision.
The visioning and manifesting process can be one of life's greatest teachers, because when we're talking about visioning and launching and manifesting, we are talking about being conscious creators. And this is also, there's many threads to many other things, and we are unconscious creators largely a lot of the time until we become conscious creators. But I think that visioning and manifesting process is a teacher and a guide for people who are going from being unconscious creators to being conscious creators. And it teaches you a lot of things in the journey, which is, when we were unconscious creators, we would do what a friend of mine calls sometimes pushing the river, right? You're pushing at your goals. You're pushing them forward, right? Instead of the future pull, which is intuition. Your ego in being an unconscious creator sometimes calls you into the process of working hard and pushing at things and goal setting and striving. Very different when you're a conscious creator and you're trusting the universe to have your back, right? And this is a lot of what we learned in the school, the school of manifesting and visioning and launching and all of those things.
Yep.
So again, I'm going to weave in a couple more quotes. And the quotes I'm reading to people in this chat here today can be found on our social media sites. So we share these quotes and these posts every month. on a particular topic. And that topic this month, of course, is visioning and launching, which I think dovetails right in there with the spring of 2021. And it's time for, planting seeds and cultivating the lives we want to live. But here, it's a little bit of like stepping back for a second and to go forward. And that's also what happens in the manifesting and visioning journey. And this is a quote from Buddha Gautama, which is, "There are two fatal errors that keep great projects from coming to life. Not finishing and not starting." Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people have a lot of ideas, but because of fear or self-doubt, or they've been devalued, or they just have some trauma or some unresolved issues in their lives in some way.
Well, actually,
we don't get started sometimes.
Well, and I also think that a sort of limiting belief mindset it sets people up for not starting, right?
Right, because in the landscape of thinking more linearly, we've grown up seeing people set goals. We might have even set goals, and we might have felt ourselves fail in some goals. So then these limiting beliefs, whether we watched somebody else try something and it didn't work out, or whether we might have tried, or maybe we were just afraid to try, right? There are many aspects of this journey. But I think that that's very important, and that he calls it two fatal errors that keep great projects from manifesting, but not starting and not finishing, right? And there's somebody else. I attended a particular business school, and this is Marie Forleo of the B School, and she talks all about start before you're ready.
Yeah, I love that.
Because a lot of people say, "I'll start when I'm ready."
Right.
And how many people just never start, right? So start before you're ready. And if we just shorten that as start.
Right.
Just start.
Right.
And so one of the questions that I wanted to ask is, what are the steps people can take today who are listening to this podcast to live the vision, purpose, project, the experience that they desire? This is just, for people listening, just to consider that. What are the steps? What's a baby step you can take today to take one step closer to that vision or the life or the relationship or the job or the experience that you want to have? And I would say that every dream and desire begins with a seed. It's a conscious seed or an intention. A conscious seed or an intention is an action step. So some people don't even have the intention. So maybe just becoming more aware of your intentions.
I was going to say, awareness is step one to all of this, is just starting to even be aware that you are not aware and that you could be more aware. Right? And in becoming aware with respect to sort of how you think and the things that could be pulling you forward, or maybe dreams, literally dreams that you've had in your sleep that are sending you a message, or this nudge, this piece of land that you keep passing and you say, "Oh gosh, I feel like I want to buy that," or whatever
People
it is.
that daydream. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you have these daydreams
absolutely.
And you're like on the beach or whatever that might be for you, and you notice that you daydream about that a lot, there's that awareness piece to say, wow, I do think about that a lot. That must be something. I'm getting guidance that maybe I can listen to differently. And just becoming more aware plants the seeds, right? It plants the seeds.
Right.
And with appreciation of that awareness, you begin to water those seeds. And that helps you start, right?
Yeah, and just one more thing I want to interject here is this notion that in a lot of the exercises that I do with my students, I often will tell them I'll give them a worksheet or ask them questions, and I will say to them, I want you to answer this question in 3 seconds or less, which basically means I want you to use your intuition. I don't want you to think about this too much, because sometimes when we think about things too much, it trips us up. Right? It gets in the way. We're not really following that inner guidance or moving with our intuition or moving in the flow of something that's inside of us that we've been out of touch with. So right. I sort of kind of wanted to speak on that here at this point. I'm not sure if we're going to get into too many details about visioning itself, but
no, I think this is a little bit more of illustrating some of that process through
using our journey,
at least with Whole Soul School and Foundation. But, I think you're talking about we need to get out of our own way.
Yes.
And sometimes our minds and our egos or whatever that mental process might be has rehearsed answers, because a lot of the questions we might ask ourselves or other people have asked us over the years, we have very prepared answers. But that may not be at all what your spirit really wants, what your desires really are.
Right.
And so that's when you say, don't think about it. Just in the first few seconds, what's your kind of your gut response.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So when I think about how people keep those seeds alive, how do they keep those seeds that they become aware of, whether it's for 2 weeks or 2 years or 30 years? How do you keep those seeds alive to bring that vision and that project to life? And what did we do with regards to Whole Soul School and Foundation? That, of course, didn't have that name. It was just the center.
Right.
Right. But we walked about it.
I was going to say, we walked.
We talked about it.
Yeah.
We would go on long walks for years. For years we would do this. And we would dream vision on those walks and about all kinds of things, not just the center, but about many aspects of our life. We would dream houses into being. And this is before we even had the language. I would say this was very intuitively guided. This is well before any kind of awakening that we had.
Yep.
We just somehow knew that it felt very good to meet after work and go for these walks, and we would create our life.
Right.
And we, at the time, I don't know that we thought it was strictly goals or that it was intuition. I don't even know that we had a language for it. We just know that we felt good when we were talking about the vision.
Well, and we were talking about our future, whether that was the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year, 5 years down the road. That's what I find fascinating is that there's a lot of people anchored in the past. And you and I have always been pulled by something moving forward. We have not gotten sort of stuck anywhere too long for any one reason. We have always sort of created the next steps.
Right.
It's like a self-propelling lawnmower. We didn't have to push too hard. We just kept being pulled.
Right. As long as we would get out of the way.
Through the conversation.
That
we would have.
Right. The conversation is the creation.
Yes.
We should probably say.
Yes.
Right. So it's so fascinating that you say that, Lacy, because we would conversate. We would talk and we would walk. And we did this in Georgia, and then we moved to Virginia, and we did it in Pennsylvania, and then we did it in North Carolina. And we just continued to do this. And we still, to this day, even though we have even busier lives, which is hard to imagine because I thought we were pretty busy in the last few decades, but we're even busier now. But we still do that walking and talking and having conversations because that's where creation is. And so that was part of what we did to get started, right? To start. And it was through consistent intention and consistent attention. And we watered that garden of this dream as a metaphor, right? And many dreams. And I think we always talked about once we saw Field of Dreams, like if we build it, they will come. We had lots of metaphors over the years. So we kept building it with our visions and our talks and our walks. We just steadily just kept the dream going and we kept watering it with that attention.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right. With that kind of commitment. And so I have some more quotes that come from this month. And Warren Bennis said, "Vision animates, inspires, transforms purpose into action." So that continues to reinforce that in the visioning, we continue to inspire and transform the purpose into action steps, right, that we can take.
That quote makes me feel, it's almost as if vision is the injection of energy, right, into, we're injecting with a vision. We are injecting energy into a vision through action, if that makes sense. I just felt that.
It's like the fertilizer.
Infusion. Yeah.
It is. It fertilizes.
Yes.
What started out with an awareness or a nudge or a gut instinct to do something or take a step. Then we water that with some appreciation and we keep steadily thinking about it and talking about it. And then, just adding to the vision and growing the vision animates and transforms that into action steps and into a creation. And then I have another quote from Rosabeth Moss Cantor, where she says, a vision is not just a picture of what could be. It is an appeal to our better selves, a call to become something more.
Love that.
And that's that future pull too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a part of us that knows that we are called to expand. We're called to grow and to have new experiences. And I know we've talked in other podcasts, and I'm sure we may again, about the trap in some ways of familiarity and comfort. You know, some people, we can be comfort creatures too, where we don't want to step out of our comfort zone. We like it just the way that it is. But there's something about life that is always introducing some kind of change in our lives. And when we can learn to ride the waves of change and see it as an adventure, right?
It really becomes fun at that point.
It becomes
enjoyable.
A lot of fun. It becomes a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then there's one more quote, is to keep your dreams alive. Understand to achieve anything requires faith and belief in yourself, vision, hard work, determination, and dedication. Remember, all things are possible for those who believe. And that's Gail Devers.
Gail Devers. I think, wasn't she an Olympic runner? I think she was a track and field Olympic person.
Well, that's amazing. So again, that's somebody who clearly listened to those impulses, listened to those pulls, took those steps, that dedication and trust, and you have to have faith. At some level, there's belief, and faith enters this process and intermixes with the fertilizer and the sunlight and the watering that we're doing, and helps that growth process.
Right.
It helps that growth process. So if we reflect back to our story with Whole Soul School and Foundation, in 2018, right, was all about building the structure, right? The container or the platform for the center, which was now officially and legally Whole Soul School and Foundation. And we did a number of things that first year. We connected with a web developer, and we started templating some ideas for some classes or some courses or offerings. We connected with Flower Diamond, who became our mystic poet, who writes a lot of poems and has ever since, every month since then, since we first connected, she has written so generously, donated these amazing poems that are painting a picture with words, right?
Yeah.
Of the hero's journey, of the journey of personal transformation and the topics that we cover. So we had that grew into our vision in 2018. And then we took more walks and more talks. We had some ups and downs in that process because that's all part of the growth process, right?
Absolutely.
There can be growing pains and growing blessings. You can have both, right?
Right.
And we just kept watering the possibilities.
And that's the difference too, because a lot of people, when they experience a down, they may get into that category that you read earlier of the no finishers.
Right.
Right.
And they start, but you don't finish.
Exactly.
Right.
But it's very much an integral part of the growth, of the growing.
Right. And life is the long game.
Yeah.
Right? So even if you have a down today or an up today, when you really become committed to vision and purpose or a passion project or something that you know is personally meaningful to you, if you don't define yourself by that one single moment, but through a longer spectrum of time, right, you can see that was just one moment of information that you were given that helped you further on your path. Some people choose those moments and say, I failed, I give up, I'm not going to continue this. Sometimes there's feedback like that, and maybe the project isn't for you, or maybe the vision you have isn't for you, and it's meant to go in a different direction. But we would say, just in our experience, we're talking about Whole Soul School and Foundation's creation, but about many things that we've created. We also have a lens that we look through now, is that we're always receiving information. We're always receiving guidance from many different sources. And you learn to discern, is this the next right step for me? Not just the next step, but is this the next right step for me? And that's also part of this process. So in 2018, it was all about building more of the structure, giving it a foundation for the foundation, right?
Right.
And then in 2019, we launched the beginnings of 4 of our podcast categories, right? And we launched Fireside Chats and Transformation Talks, Indigenous Wisdom, and Mind, Body, Spirit Fitness. And we started podcasting, right? And you and I in Fireside Chats, people can always find this, but for 12 months, we did some very engaging podcasts that we had a Fireside Chat every month, and then we also debuted a film that would also illustrate those concepts. We did a second Fireside Chat where we talked about the films that would illustrate those concepts and those themes of the journey of personal transformation.
Yeah, and that was from January 19 to December of 19. And that, if you were ever to want to listen to that whole 12 months was a journey unto itself.
It was very powerful.
Yeah.
Very powerful. And it's something
I refer people back to that a lot.
To revisit that exactly anytime to support you and your journey, right? And we also posted social media posts. Flower Diamond continued to write poems. Like, the energy continues to move forward. You don't hear anything in my language, Lacy, do you? That anything stopped?
No. Now I think it's fair to say that there is much that has occurred in our life throughout this journey that might have caused a pause. But for very sure
to listen.
Yeah.
But the pausing's usually to listen.
Yes, 100%.
If we faced a pause moment, a still point for a minute, it's to listen differently than what we were listening to.
Right.
And that is guidance. So again,
Yes.
you learn the
It's all part of it.
language where, right, you just keep going. And I want to point out, I looked at the titles of some of our podcasts before we got on air here. And we talked about the ego and the conditioned self, and self-awareness and energy and the law of attraction, visioning and manifesting, and many, many more topics in that 12-month period, all with a film that also complemented those. And then there were also, we podcasted with other guests in the other podcast categories, to include some amazing people, Lacy, that you met and worked with while you were a clinical psychologist in the prison system. And when you retired, and some of those men who released from prison, we were able to begin to co-create together some of those podcasts and some of those messages. It's amazing. I can tell you that in the early 1990s, never saw any of these things coming, that I was going to talk to all these wonderful, amazing people who had stepped out and stepped onto the journey of personal transformation.
Right.
But our life has become so rich because of those engagements and those conversations and those connections, right?
And continues to be.
So, and thus our ideas and the content creation continue to grow. And then in 2020, which was just last year, and COVID hit, and a number of things, I think we all recalibrated in some way, right? And we were called to listen deeper to what were our goals with Whole Soul School and Foundation? What were our goals with some of the other projects that we have going simultaneously? And we needed some time. So that doesn't mean we stopped. It doesn't mean we quit. It doesn't mean that we didn't finish. We actually just scaled back a little bit so we could listen more, and we could really template more of the true direction we wanted things to go in. And we needed that time, all while the global pandemic was also going on and things had changed in our life, and you had returned to full-time work. And so, but a nonprofit that is part of our vision for a center continues to grow. We slowed down a little bit of the growth process so we could understand exactly what we were consciously creating. And that can be a real blessing.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Because just because you can create something doesn't mean that's truly what you want to create and create it that way.
Right.
So we entered a place of deeper listening, like a lot of people have over this last year. Do I want this job? Is this where I want to live? Is this the partnership I want? Is this the relationship I want to be having with people? Is this how I want to deal with my fear? A lot of people were facing lots of different kinds of things over the past year. And Whole Soul School and Foundation needed another attunement. It needed another refinement. And we gave it that. It seemed to ask for that. We needed that. The world needed that. And honoring that meant that we still could keep moving forward, but we could listen differently. And I think that's what we did a lot of last year.
Yeah.
So So we just continued the fireside chats. We continued to listen for the podcast categories. We continued to meet with some people to podcast in the other categories, mind, body, spirit, fitness, and maybe some other things. And this is also in moments like this when you feel yourself scaling back, not stopping, but listening and allowing a different flow. Faith can be tested, right? Faith can be tested. Your conviction in a project, or your commitment to a passion, or your belief in your vision. Some people would just have a tremendous amount of self-doubt. I think we've been far enough in the process that when this happened to us, we appreciated it as guidance. And we just continued to take, that's what we did a lot of this past year, is we just took the next step and the next step and the next step. Somewhere last year, I think we also stopped doing the newsletter, which is important to mention as well. That was another way of just sort of allowing us to sort of slow the pace down a little bit so we could listen differently. And sometimes you have to go 2 steps back to go forward on a better course.
Yes.
And that's like seasoned creation. Being more of a seasoned creator is, your interpretation and your lens of everything is a little different, because we knew we were still committed.
Yes.
We knew we were still committed.
Yes.
We just could feel that something else wanted to manifest through us, and,
yes.
and we needed that time.
Yes, and I just have to say that one of the biggest lessons that I've learned over the last 30 years, and you've said it, and I've said it probably in lots of different ways, but it's this notion that there really is no time. There's just listening, and there's a vision that is guiding us forward, and the key is to not have attachment to the specifics related to the vision. So if that makes sense, so in other words, it's 3 steps forward, 1 step back every now and then, and life is changing, and life circumstances and humanity is changing, and so it doesn't mean the vision stops or the vision goes away or the vision gets buried. It just means that it ebbs and it flows. It's an ebb and flowing energy.
Right. I mean, the universe recalibrates.
Yeah.
It's always looking for the optimal path.
Right.
For anything we are meant to be, any of our projects are meant to be, any of our visions are destined to be. And it's helping us. So if we can, the regular just linear life with our old conditioned lenses where our ego is at the helm, it likes to judge. Right. You didn't measure up. You didn't finish this out. Oh,
right.
Look what happened. Look, you try these things and they just don't work out for you. It wants to do that because that's how the ego operates. But the universe operates in a kind of divinely orchestrated flow.
Oh, like water. I mean,
it's like water.
Yeah,
it's like
water.
A dance. It dances, and dances you don't get it right or wrong. You can't dance wrong. You just learn a different way to move. And when you learn how to move in harmony with the universe, well, that's when the magic happens, right?
Yes.
And that's when, even when something that to your ego's lens would look like a failure or a major setback.
Right, exactly.
The more seasoned creator says, oh, I recognize this feeling, right? This means I need to listen deeper. This means we might be on the cusp of a significant change that's actually going to help seed this project or this vision even better how it's supposed to be. So that's when you have to fall into that faith, and you trust that when you relax and you don't try to grip tighter at the steering wheel,
right,
you actually relax your grip and you let go.
Right.
And the universe can almost teleport you to a whole other path, or something that's just more aligned in a different way, different people, different connections, different ways of thinking and being. Then you start to get more aligned with what it's ultimately designed to be. And if you fight these things and you start to experience suffering, you can ask yourself, is this a feeling that my ego creates, or is this a feeling that the universe tends to create? Failure is kind of an egoic word, and still points and adjustments and recalibrating is more the language of the soul. And here we are. This is Whole Soul School and Foundation.
Right.
So, of course, we're going to be talking about that. So I have a couple of quotes just to further illustrate what we're talking about. And Dennis Waitley says, if you believe you can, you probably can. If you believe you won't, you most assuredly won't. Belief is the ignition switch that gets you off the launching pad. It's so true, right? It's you are what you believe.
Yeah.
You experience what you believe. We've talked about that a lot here, and we'll continue to reinforce that. But our thoughts become things. And so if you're the person who says, this doesn't work, I never succeed at anything, right? This is too hard. Well, it will be too hard.
Well, and unfortunately, our conditioning growing up for most people is very limiting, right? It's we are taught very early on to see the limitations, to see where things won't work, to see what we don't want, to see what doesn't feel good, and all of the belief systems that are kind of constructed around limitation is often what's seeded in us at an early age, and it takes an active effort on our part to shift out of that,
to change course,
yeah,
and break out of those conditionings, and to actually begin to chart your own course.
And I believe we can kind of revamp our belief system.
Well, we can change our lives.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ultimately one of our core beliefs, and it's in many metaphysical sources of inspiration and information, right? We can change our lives, but it starts with those belief systems. And if you keep holding really tight to the belief that things don't work out for you, that tends to be your experience, and you will have that kind of boomerangs back to you the way the universe works, and you will keep proving to yourself that things like this don't work, they're just not possible. But the person, whether by a catalyst in their life, something that's kind of shattered some of their belief systems for whatever reason, or somebody who does find their way into choosing and saying, I just want to grow and experience some new things, well, we can let go of that conditioning and say, well, I choose to believe that anything's possible. I choose to believe that I can be a creator. Well, that will begin to be your experience as well. So I thought that was really important. And there's another quote by Henry David Thoreau, and he says, though I do not believe that a plant will spring up where no seed has been, I have great faith in a seed. Convince me that you have a seed there, and I am prepared to expect wonders.
Love that.
So powerful, right? So remember, what the other quote was saying is the reason some projects don't actually manifest is people never get started. Well, if you don't plant the seed, nothing can grow.
Right.
But if you have the seed, well, then we can be prepared to expect wonders.
Yes.
It's so powerful. So, and I wanted to include Flower Diamond also wrote some wonderful poems for us this month, and I wanted to include a couple, at least in our conversation today. One of them is, she says, visionary, O island, I wait for you to come into focus as I stay floating in the mystery of who I am. I am nothing until I arrive at your shore.
Go Flower. That is so beautiful.
She rocks it. She is so amazing. If our listeners haven't ever experienced the Flower Diamond magic, I mean, she's amazing what she does with a pen. And many, many months, she sent me 20 or 30 poems that she writes 30 to 50 poems a day. Flower Diamond. That's just part of her spiritual practice that keeps her moving and in the flow. That's who she is. And that's how her creativity flows. But that was really powerful. And, that's summoning in the inner visionary that we truly are, which is basically the creators that we are. And then, so now we are at the point in our story, Lacy, of Whole Soul School and Foundation that in 2021, and we're only in March, but we're on the cusp of April at this point of our podcast, we've been taking things to a whole new level. We felt as we just crossed the threshold into 2021 that changes had been on the horizon. We listened for a lot of 2020, and we knew it was expansion time, right? In any creation that anybody makes, there comes a point that you can either contract and get smaller,
right,
or say yes to expansion.
Yes.
And we were facing that, right? Do we contract and get smaller, or do we believe and step up with faith and we water those seeds even more and we embrace expansion? And we chose the latter, right? Because that's our nature, but it's also what we've learned in the journey, right? So we knew that Whole Soul School and Foundation was destined for another expansion. The seeds had been planted. We'd watered the seeds. We loved and tended them for a period of time. And now it's a time to bloom, right? Another layer of this beautiful garden. So we're going to, maybe I could say 2.0, but maybe it's 10.0 at this point.
Yeah.
In its journey and in Whole Soul School and Foundation's life. So we went from the visions in the 90s to launchings and manifestations in the 2020s, really. And we are presently, here's some updates for our listeners, which I find very exciting.
Drum roll, pay attention here.
Right. We are presently expanding and updating our website. We are going to be launching and emerging more and more as the embodied manifestation of the dream as a good vibes broadcasting company this year. We're really going to step into being a broadcasting company. This is the best way we've found to share these messages with people on a broader scale, especially during COVID, especially during this time on the planet where we've had largely a huge still point. A blanket has been put over the planet and people have had to kind of cocoon in. But in that cocooning, for us, as you listen and you cocoon, guidance comes. And Good Vibes Broadcasting has birthed out of those insights. I know. We have very productive cocoons, actually. And we are adding 2 new podcast categories. And so I think we're going to have a total of about 6 or 7 of them now. But, people can imagine a consciousness broadcasting company, a Good Vibes broadcasting company that's really about real stories and real people rising in their lives. And this is so much
in their light and in their, to me, it's all about the positive vibration that we want to help people tap into within themselves and then, reverberate out into
right.
humanity. And if we're all doing that together, we can change the world.
Right. Well, and the possibilities are endless, and prosperity and plenty can be for all of us. And the struggle and the hardship can begin to become something of the past when people are in this awareness that we are creators.
Yes.
And we can create a way out of the way the world is right now. But it is one step at a time.
Yes.
It's one person at a time. And when 2 conscious creators come together, well, it's magnified. Right. And when 10 conscious creators come together, it's even more amplified. And that's what we see happening. But we want our Good Vibes broadcasting, all of our podcasts, shows. We're going to have more guests, more people, more messengers talking about good news and also the journey of personal transformation, right? It's not like it's always rainbows and sunny skies. When you enter the journey of personal transformation, there are challenges sometimes as you go through those growth spurts, right?
Of course.
But we also want to be voices of that you can go through those moments and you can glean the lessons, you can have the language and the tools to make the most out of those moments in those experiences.
And that we are in support of others.
Absolutely.
Right? All of the things that we will be doing and sharing. It's not just about teaching. It's also about supporting and loving and guiding and coaching and
inspiring people, really, and empowering people to really, we reviewed that new revised, refined mission statement where we're supporting people to increase their self-awareness,
right?
Increase their own personal empowerment, and increase their own experience and engagement of the journey of personal transformation and rising.
Right.
And rising. And it's there for all of us. We've said this for many years now. It's not just for some of us. It's not just for this group and not that group. It really is for everyone, but the choice rests in every single person, whether you accept the invitation to the journey. And we all find our moment in the sun when we say, I'm ready.
Yes.
And we want to keep putting out that invitation in our broadcast to people to say, come with us, come listen to us. Maybe people listen to us for 2 or 3 years before they say, I think I'm ready, right?
Right.
We all get there in our own timing. But so we're expanding the website, we're launching more podcasts, we're becoming this broadcasting company. That's a big part of our vision now. And the consciousness teachings, We're going to be applying for hopefully some grants very soon to support this work and to support an expansion. Certainly love to have a film crew, like an editing crew. A little more manpower would be helpful. And so, we are presently planning to have some merchandise and some products that are higher vibrational, that are inspirational. And when you buy those products, not only do you feel good, but you help support and seed more of the offerings that we're going to have here. So those are wins for us, for all of us. And we do envision having life coaching sessions where people can choose to engage to get some support one-on-one. So that's part of the larger vision as well. So there are lots of expansions to come. It's been nearly 30 years in the making, and we are just about to engage the next tier of these growth spurts and these expansions, and to truly launch the Good Vibes broadcasting. So they aim to illustrate, teach, and empower and invite people to live their own journeys of personal transformation and positive change. And I have a couple more quotes before we close out today, right? And the next one is a quote by Miguel Angel Ruiz. Through our faith, we gain the courage to take action. And through action, we move one step closer toward the manifestation of our desires. Again, that action piece is so critical.
And the baby steps.
And the baby steps can be that action, right? There's another quote from Neil Donald Walsh. You are always in the process of creating. Every moment, every minute, every day. You are a big creation machine and you are turning out a new manifestation literally as fast as you can think. That's powerful, right?
Really powerful, because so many people don't quite understand that it's anything we think about, we bring about.
Right.
So if we're always thinking, we have 65 to 70,000 thoughts a day.
Exactly.
We're always creating, because what we think about, we bring about. So let's start turning our own ship and start thinking in more visionary, creationary, positive ways.
Well, and it's a creative, creationary universe.
Yes.
And some people are hearing that for the first time. Some people need the reminder.
Right.
And some people just need the affirmation, right, to keep going. But wherever we are in that journey, this is a creation in motion.
Right.
And we can be conscious creators in that or unconscious creators. But either way, we're a creator. There's another quote from Deepak Chopra. When you make contact with your higher self, you'll have the support of nature, which will allow for the manifestation of all you desire. And a lot of these quotes are just powerful inspirations, but a lot of people, if we think about who we might think of as the greats, right? People who did great things and they did great work. A lot of time they were people who spent time in nature. They created a little pocket of time in their day or in their life where they could connect at a deeper level to what Flower Diamond calls the muse. They would connect into that space inside themselves that's the creative life force. And scientists have done it, right? It's not just artists. A lot of scientists, innovators, they get their best information from that connection and that communion with their higher self or with spirit. And nature, it's amazing what it does for the soul. And the last quote is by Ernest Yeboah. And the quote is, take a step, face the challenges. When you seem to be sinking, call on God, for He can provide good helpers. There are so many true helpers standing by along the journey of purposefulness. Just do your best and take good steps in full faith, and God will bring helpers. Look and see, for sometimes God opens doors in a way we least expect. Sometimes God makes things go wrong for a good purpose. Take steps with a well-balanced patience and impatience, or else you shall always miss true helpers and opportunities. They that shall keep waiting shall keep waiting, and they that shall keep moving shall keep moving. Take a step. I love that. I think that's so important in the visioner's journey, in the manifestor's journey. As a conscious creator, the key is movement. The key is movement, right?
Flow.
The flow. Find your flow.
Yep.
And I like that. And I want to say, so expect great things from Whole Soul School and Foundation and our Good Vibes broadcasting and our consciousness teachings this year and growing forward. We are reactivating our newsletter. We will have new products to share soon. We're going to have new offerings on our website. We will continue to expand our podcast and have new voices and messengers. And if you feel called to support us or are already supporting us, we thank you. We truly appreciate you. And we appreciate the positive impact you are helping us to create in the world, especially in these times. You can donate through our website currently, and soon there will be new ways to give and participate. So stay tuned. And Lacy, I want to thank you for joining me in this podcast today.
Thank you, Marie. It's been wonderful walking down the memory of Vision Lane.
I know, right? And I want to thank our listeners for celebrating with us. We're calling it an anniversary, but to me it feels like a birthday.
Yeah.
You know, we're celebrating Whole Soul School and Foundation's 3rd birthday. And people can find us on the web at wholesoulschoolandfoundation.org. And you can find us on social media, of course, on YouTube and Facebook and many other places, Whole Soul School and Foundation. And we will see you again next month in April when we're talking more about some of these seeds that are manifesting. And until next time, we send everyone blessings and good vibes. Keep it moving and take that step.
Yes.